Welcome to the Lapis Guides Introduction to QGIS program. For those of you that use the Lapis Guides app platform to collect data for your research projects, you may now be wondering, what do I do with the data now that I have it? Go ahead and you can check some of our other tutorial videos on how you can download the data that you've collected. But in these tutorials, we're going to be looking at how to use your data in QGIS to do various analyses. For those of you that don't use the Lapis Guides app platform, that's totally fine. The data will be made available to you through our website. The link is in the description. Go ahead and check that out. You can download the data and follow along with the tutorials as well. Or if you want to use your own data, that's fine. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Our first module is going to be looking at how do we use open source mapping. All right, so that could be like what you're probably familiar with Google Maps when you see that, or maybe you use Bing or you use OSM. There's various different open source maps that are available, and how can we get that into QGIS to use as a base layer for various analyses so that we can get started with a project. We're going to combine that with learning about vectors. There are three different types of vectors. There's polygons, which are shapes. There's lines, and there's points. We're going to learn how to create each of those today. We're also going to learn how to modify those vectors, so changing their color, adding an outline, changing the size. There's various different ways that we can modify those vectors. And then we're going to combine that with the open source mapping to produce a fictitious map of an island. We're going to create a fun little map of a secret government research facility. All right, so yeah, why don't we go ahead and get started? Make sure you open up QGIS. These tutorials all are based on QGIS version 3.4. Make sure you have that one. That's the long-term release at this time, mid 2019. Right, and the first thing that we need to do actually is we need to go in and we need to add a plugin. So we're going to go to Plugins, Manage and Install Plugins. And we're just going to search for OSM. And you want to make sure that you've got Open Layers plugin installed and switched on. So you need to make sure that the box is checked. So if you don't have this one already installed, make sure you install it and then make sure the box is checked, and then you'll be able to use the Open Layers plugin. Now to use that plugin, we go up to Web, go to Open Layers plugin, and I'm just going to use why don't we just use OpenStreetMap? All right, so click on that and it'll launch the map, and you'll see that in your main panel. And let's go ahead and zoom in on an area where there's a little bit of islands. All right, and I'm gonna do one of the Faroe Islands. All right, so we've got one of the Faroe Islands in the middle of my screen here. What I want to do is I want to create a traced outline of this island. Right, so I'm using the open source map as kind of a starting point to create the shape for my island that I'm going to map out. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to create a new shapefile layer. So you may have these buttons along the side on the left, and you can click that. And if you don't have those buttons visible, go up to Layer, Create Layer, and do New Shapefile Layer. All right, common mistake is that people want to put in a file name into this nice empty box right here, but that actually won't work because that's where it will show the file directory listing later. So what we actually need to do, we need to click the box with the three dots. We're going to come in here. We're going to give it a name. All right, we'll save it. We'll want to make sure that the geometry type is a polygon, because we're going to be tracing out a shape of the island, a polygon of the island. And we'll go ahead and click OK. Great, so make sure that this new shapefile layer in your layer panel is visible. Scoot that over a little bit. All right, selected, and we're going to go up and choose the toggle editing button. All right, so now that means that we can edit that shapefile. All right, and we're going to click on this button, the Add Polygon feature. And that will allow us to start tracing out the island. Now, I don't want to be zoomed out too far because then it's going to be really hard to get the detail of the island. But if I zoom in too far, right, I'm going to have an enormous amount of detail that's going to take me a really long time to trace all of this. And so just go ahead and find yourself a decent middle ground. This should be okay. And go ahead and start wherever you want to. And it's just, you just use the left click button on your mouse. You go through. And if you go off a bit, you can use the backspace button on your computer to remove points that weren't quite right. All right, so go ahead and trace out your island. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just using this as an idea. All right, now as you come to the end of your tracing, the way that you finish the shape is by using the right mouse button to click. And it's going to ask you to fill in some boxes if you have any fields. For this shape, it's not actually important for us, so just leave it blank and click OK. And you're going to see that shape. Now, obviously, you see that that shape is actually quite angular, right? And that's okay. There's ways that we can deal with that. It's actually really quite quick and easy. We can go to Processing up here, go to Toolbox, type in Smooth, right? And under Vector Geometry, we want to choose Smooth, so just double click on that. That's the layer that we want to smooth. All right, we'll just click Run. All of that looks fine. Okay, so you can see it's smoothed out those edges a little bit. It's a little bit nicer now. Right, and you'll notice there's this little icon right here next to our smoothed one. That means that it's currently just a scratch layer. It's not saved anywhere. So if we want to save this one, we need to right click, go down to Export, Save Feature As. Again, we want to click on those three dots. I'm going to name this Faroe Island Smooth. All right, and all of that looks fine. Great. So now that I have my smooth layer properly named, I can delete or at least remove these two that we don't want anymore. All right. Do that by right clicking and you can choose remove. All right, and I don't actually need to see the background map anymore, so I can unselect it. And if we right click on this layer, we can say zoom to layer and it will just automatically put the full island in our field of view. All right, so this looks pretty good. The next thing that we want to do is we want to add two data points. All right, one is going to be where the ship would dock, and the other one we're going to put where the secret government research station will be. All right, now again, to do that, we want to create a new vector layer, new shapefile. All right, this time it will be points. Geometry type will be points. We're going to name this Faroe Island points. Right, and this time we actually want to create a new field. Okay, so this is going to be, we're going to name this location. Make sure that it says text data, and the length is 80 is fine. And then we click Add to Fields List. Right, we don't actually need that one. All right, so this is the only one that we need. Okay, we'll click OK. Great. So make sure that this is selected. We're going to toggle editing on. We're going to say Add Point Feature. Okay, and I'm going to look for a location that kind of seems like a good place for a boat to dock. So let's choose this one. All right, and I'm going to call this docking area. All right, great. So that's our first point created, and we're going to create a second point. I'm going to put it somewhere kind of more in the middle of the island. And this one is going to be the research base. Super. So now we've got 2 points. Make sure we go up, we click toggle editing. It's going to prompt us to save. And that one's done. All right, the point data is really quite quick and easy. And the last one that we're going to do, we're going to create another new shapefile. We're going to name this one Faroe Island Road. All right, and we're going to make sure our geometry type is a line. All right, we're not worried about any fields this time, so we'll just leave it. Great. Toggle editing on. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that I can get closer to my data points. All right, and we're going to add a line feature. Okay, and same thing, left clicks create the line, and a right click ends the line. So I'm going to start it right here. I'm going to kind of let it meander a bit, so it's not just a straight shot. All right, and so right click button, press OK, toggle editing off. Yeah, we'll save that. All right, now just like with our shape, okay, you can see that it's a little bit angular. It's not a very nice, smooth, straight looking route. So we're going to do the same thing with this one. We're going to go over, if you have already closed this, go back up to processing toolbox and go back to your smoothing thing. All right, make sure we've got the right input layer, Faroe Island Road. All right, we're going to run that. Close it. Okay, it looks a little bit better. Still maybe a little bit angular, but it's definitely nicer. So I'm going to try that one more time with 3 iterations. Okay, and it's not a very great color, but we can change that later, but it looks a lot smoother. So that's super. So why don't we go ahead and we'll save that, save feature as Faroe Island Road, smooth. We'll save it. Excellent. All right, so we don't need those, and we'll just remove those. There's a little button right there that makes it a little bit quicker. Okay, super. So you can see that's definitely smoothed out that road a lot. It's not angular anymore. Great, so now we have 3 different types of vectors. We have a polygon, a line, and point vectors. The next thing that we want to do is we want to manipulate them a little bit, make a little bit of different colors or different shapes for the point data, and there's a lot of really cool things that we can do with that. So let's go ahead and work on the polygon. Now, since this is an island, we want to be able to show water around the island. And the easiest way to do that is to create a copy of our island and then tell it to invert itself, and then we can color that. So I'll show you how to go through that. Faroe Island, you right click, and we're going to say duplicate layer. Okay. Make sure you turn that back on because it'll automatically uncheck it. And we're going to double click on it. Right. And we want to make sure we're on symbology. Okay. And in this top box where it says single symbol, what we want is actually inverted polygons. All right. And that's going to give us an option to do something interesting here. So we can come in, and instead of a simple fill, right, we can change this to a shape burst fill. Okay, we can do a color ramp. I'm going to choose a color ramp of blue. All right. And We can do a whole shape or we can set a distance, and a lot of this is trial and error, especially at the beginning. And so what we can do is let's choose 15 to start with. All right, we'll click apply. And you can see that it's definitely made a change in the background here. Now, it seems to be backwards. So what we can do is in our color ramp, we can select invert color ramp. So still blues, but it'll invert it so that the blue starts at the island and goes to white on its way out. So let's click apply, and that looks a whole lot better. But I'd like it to be a little bit further out. So let's maybe do 30. See what that looks like. It's looking better. Try 40. Okay, 40 is looking nicer. So that's all that we really want to do with that one. So now let's go in and we're going to work with the actual island itself. Okay, so I want a little bit of a greener color. Or actually, this is kind of far north. So maybe, I mean, it's not always cold there, but let's make it look a little bit chilly. Kind of a coldish color. Okay. But what I want to do here, I'm going to add another one. And this one, so I'm going to add another fill layer inside here. Okay. And this one I'm going to do as a shape burst. I'm going to go 2 colors. Yep. Okay. Super. Okay, that's looking a little bit more three-dimensional. Good. Now on my initial simple fill, and actually let's move this one down underneath. Okay, on my initial simple fill, what I want is a solid line around the edge, but it needs to be a little bit thicker so you can see it a bit better. Okay, now you just notice that it covered up my shape burst fill. And all I need to do now is I need to come in and click transparent. Great. That's looking a whole lot better, a whole lot more like an island. So the next thing we're going to work on is the road. So we're going to come in, double click on our road layer, right? And we're going to choose the line and go to stroke style, and we're just going to say a dashed line. All right, let's apply that. Let's make it maybe a little bit thicker. Yeah, that looks great. Okay, but I'm not happy with the color. I'm just going to go right back in, and I just want it to be a simple black. All right, excellent. So for working with our point vectors, I'm going to show you another plugin that will give you a whole lot more choices for background point vectors. All right, because when we come in and we look at the choices that we have that we can play with, right? We've got actually not a ton of great options here, but there's a plugin that we can download that will give us a whole lot more options. So let's go ahead and see how to do that. Again, we need to go back into our plugin directory, manage and install plugins. Okay, and I want you to search for resource sharing, and you should see QGIS resource sharing. Make sure that you install that. It'll tell you that it's experimental. It's fine. It still works. Make sure you turn it on after you install it if it doesn't automatically. Okay, and what you're going to do, you're going to go to plugins and you're going to now see resource sharing here. You'll click that. Okay, and there's various different, basically these are different shapes or images that you can use as data points on your map. All right, and some of them are more useful than others for us. I think one that would be really good for us is the nautical symbols, because we're going to need something to fit with a docking station for boats. All right, and you can go through any of these and download them all. They're all free. They're easy to, you just click install and it's done. All right. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go in and go to Faroe Island points. All right, and I'm going to create another one underneath, and this one I'm going to change to an SVG marker. Okay. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time and I'm going to look for something with a boat. There we go. All right, great. Now, as you can see, it's not very big, is it? So how do we manipulate that to be big enough to see? All right, so I want to come in and I want to change the size here. I'm probably going to change that up to like, I don't know, let's try 7 to start with. Okay, it's looking a lot better. Yeah, but it's kind of, it's not great to, it's not really super visible on the background. It's always nicer to have a background there. That's why we left this simple marker here. So we're going to come in, we're going to change this size as well, and you can see a preview of what things will look like here. All right, so I'm going to make this approximately that size. Okay, I'm going to change the color to be something quite bright. Okay, great. And I'm going to go into my SVG marker, the one that actually is the boat, and I'm going to change its color to just be black. It'll just be so much easier. Right, and I'm going to enlarge it just a little bit. Now, sometimes you'll see that they don't match up nicely. They're not nicely centered, right? They're like off down on the bottom like this, all right? And so you just need to go to your offset section down here and change that until you're happy with it. I think I could probably move it down a little bit. Okay, great. So let's click apply. Ha, but that's kind of weird. Why do we have it for both of these? We don't want that, do we? This obviously is not a docking station. All right, so let's go double click again, and we're going to go up here and we're going to change single symbol to rule based. If you remember back to when we created the data points, we were able to give them names. So basically, when we create a rule, we're able to tell QGIS that if the name is, for example, docking station, we're going to give it this symbol, right? So it's really easy. We just need to create a filter. So we click the function button. I'm going to look for fields and values is location. Remember, we created that field for location. And our location is going to equal, we can click all unique over here and it'll give a list of all of the different ones that we have. We're going to double click on docking area. So now we have a formula that says location equals docking area. All right, so anytime that the location of the information that we input when we created those data points, anytime that the location is docking area, it will give us this symbol for the point. All right, we'll click OK. And now you see that one is gone, right? Now let's go ahead and create something for this location. Right, so again, we're in rule-based. We want to create a new rule. Right, so we go down and click the plus button. I'm going to create a new rule. Fields and values, location equals research base. Okay, and let's create one for that. All right, this is, again, we want an S. Let's create, yep, there we go. We want this one to be an SVG. Okay, and let's go ahead and choose something that kind of looks like maybe it was for a research station. I don't know. Sure, we'll choose this one. Okay. And we want it to be black. Great. And we want our background marker to be that yellow color. Yeah, let's just double check what our sizes were there. 10.4. 10.4 for the simple marker and 8.2 for our SVG marker. Okay, so let's make sure we make that the same. 10.4. What was that? 8.2. Super. Great. Now you'll notice that this road kind of sneaks up on top of the symbols on both sides. It's a really simple fix. Right, there we go. You can just drag it down. Great. So now we have created an island, polygons of the shape of the island, the road, the points. We have changed the color. We've added an outline. We've added symbols and a road with different shapes. Okay. So in the next portion of Module 1's tutorial, we're going to look at how do we put this into the print composer and create a JPEG map image where we can put a title, we can put a key, we can put a scale bar, all of these different things. That's what we're going to learn in the next one. So hopefully I'll see you in the next tutorial, and yeah, best of luck.